29 years of experience in 6 minutes, and I'm sat here thinking, how do I expand 3 years of experience in 6 minutes? But I will try my best, and thank you again for the invite. When I got the invite, I looked at the speakers and I panicked. And I told my parents, I said, I don't know what I'm doing here, and thankfully they helped me, and they said, listen, that's not what we're here for. We're here for insights and perspective. And so I might not have delivered, massive multi-billion change or led huge teams. In fact, no, my manager's right there, and this is what I'm doing. But really, I wanted to take it down a level. I wanted to bring it personal. And for some of you, you're probably so far away from those years of being a younger person and turning up in an office and trying to deliver change. Then maybe I'll just bring it back to that and help you understand really for your teams, what are your teams doing and how do your people look at it. So I'm very early into my career. I still don't really know what I want to do. But what I have figured out is I do like people, so that's a good start. Some people are amazing at spreadsheets, right? They can take a massive data and they can just turn it into communicating something else. I look at it in a way that people are my spreadsheets. When I'm sat around a room in a meeting, sometimes as well as listening, I promise, I'm also watching. I'm looking at what is somebody not telling me. That's the most important part. There is something in there that somebody's not telling me that will answer the question to your process driven. So to contextualise this and bring this to an example, I would say, many moons ago, but it wasn't really, it was 2018, and I was fortunate enough to do a placement year at Cadent. So I don't know if he knows, but Mike Lapper actually interviewed me for my placement. And so therefore, I have to really thank him for being here in the long run, 5 years, 6 years later. But I worked in the Midlands, and my homeland is Manchester. I know I don't sound like it. But essentially I worked in operational excellence and business improvement. And we were given a project, and the Cadent colleagues would know that as energy operations, around how do we take energy operations from paper to online. And essentially what their process was when somebody wants to dig near our assets, our gas assets, we need to know exactly who they are, what they're doing, and who we are as well. A lot of people don't know Cadent until they hear about us. If you don't know who us are now, you'll probably see our vans tomorrow, and then the roadworks as well going forward. However, I turned up at that office in my hometown in Manchester, and I was really excited. I think I was most excited about going home and sort of seeing my parents in a professional outfit. I had my shirt on, my shoes on, and feeling, I'm now something. I mean, I was 18, 19 at the time, so probably not. And as soon as I walked into that operational office, it struck me. The change felt almost near impossible. I entered this office and it was just really, really hard-working engineers working their daily life doing paper all the time. And I was saying, no, we need to do this paperless. And why do I say that? We see a number of management procedures and leadership and all that sort of thing, and they're great. They're thought-inspiring. When you're in the heat of the moment, they help us think outside the box. I'm sure we've all seen that Lego picture, and it's somebody comes along and says, do you want to improve? And they reply with, I'm too busy to improve. And the crux of it is they've got square wheels and the person's holding a circular wheel. So the point still stands, but what if we look at it from a different angle? So what if we look at the angle that I look at it? And that's saying, why are they too busy to improve? And who is the person who is pulling that cart along? So what I did that night after I went into that operational office, and I felt really ashamed, these people didn't listen to me. Unfortunately, the more you tend to understand people and want to understand people, the more they make you anxious when you go to bed and you think, why did I say that? Why did that person's look on the face? So I went back into the office and I decided to do their work with them. I did some inquiries with them, I went out on site with them, really just understood who they were. It wasn't along the lines of, did you watch the football last night? Because that's quite generic. It was understanding what they really enjoyed about Cadent, why they still worked for Cadent, and how do we implement that into our new working process. So long story short, that project went wide from the other networks, but I felt, I got a really thought message from some of the engineers and says, it was great working with you going forward, etc. And for me that was pretty game changing. That was sort of the start of me understanding where I think I wanted to be going forward. So I tried to make this so that people understand. I like to think of it as using empathy, but not necessarily agree. Now the reason why I say that is you can sit down and have somebody rant at you and shout at you and say, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. You don't say, I agree with you, that doesn't work. You say, I understand. I understand that's hard. if you understand who they are, you don't have to understand what they do when they get home at night, but who they are as a person, what drives them. Do they like working with a spreadsheet? Do they like working with people like myself? Do they want to lead the team in the future, or do they want to stay in the position that they're in? I think it's also about bringing the theme equity into this. So I went to a customer experience forum a couple of weeks back, again, in a similar notion, a lot of business leaders, and I was actually quite shocked when we sat down to do a fake customer journey plotting, that nobody went along the lines of saying, let's bring the people who are in the thick of it into the conversation. So what I mean by equity is, let's actually find out who in the business, who is on the front lines, and it's similar to what Emily was saying, is what is their opinion? How do they want to get involved? Are we giving somebody an opportunity to be involved in a project they've not quite been involved in? And I think it leads back to everyone's got an unconscious bias. We pretend that emotion isn't involved in the workplace. It is. It really is. And we talk about stakeholder plans and stakeholder management. And I've done some project management courses, and they say this is who you need to inform, this is who you need to speak to, this is who you need to manage this person. But I have one, and I ran this across Amber earlier. It doesn't really sound right, but it's called the pillow plan. When you put your head on the pillow at night, we all think about work. I mean, you're very fortunate if you don't. But who is that one person that made your job that little bit more difficult that day? And think, tomorrow, how am I going to approach that person? How am I going to speak to that person? How am I going to find out exactly what's going on in that person's work life so that I can perhaps help them and they can help me? So, am I all right for time? Is that still good? So this won't always work. I'm not saying that you can go in, make friends with people, have a cup of tea, and your change is there and it's perfect. But from my experience and my short experience, what I have found is that the people who want to support you and want to see you succeed are more likely to help you. So that dreaded first trial, and now I say first trial because I'm involved from the get-go. A first trial for me is like half a year's work, whereas for you it might be something that you set to do a trial project. That first trial becomes that little bit more comfortable. And the reason why I say that is because when somebody has a frustration with a project, you can begin to understand why they might have that frustration. You've taken the time to understand what makes them work in the workplace. Therefore, when that frustration pops up in your trial, you say, that's because that person doesn't like working this way, so let's try and do this way, etc. I don't want to waffle on that point, but that's the case. I think it also means that when first trials don't work, people don't immediately go, no, that's not for me, block it off, finished. Instead, it means that new avenues can open up. People say, no, it didn't work for me, but whilst I was doing it, I was having a think and thought maybe this might work for us. Or this system hasn't quite worked, can we use that? I work a lot in insights, as we say, and I'm sure Sophie, Michael and Amber would agree that in Cadent and maturing, we're using data a lot more, but there's so much more we could use. When we bring data to teams, especially our contractors, sometimes they turn around and say, well, you're just telling us we're doing rubbish, and that's it. So what we've tried to do is build a relationship with them and say, this is what the data says, can you tell us in return why that might be, and is there any way we can work together to help that solution? So when I did my dissertation, I included a piece. I did my dissertation on social sustainability, and I did a piece on safety, and the idea that you could have an amazing, foolproof, safe engineering process. But if somebody looking outside their window sees you do something that they deem unsafe, for them, that whatever that procedure was, whatever's been left there is unsafe. We know how powerful the mind can be and how powerful mental health can be. If somebody, especially of age, feels unsafe, then that's it, game over. It doesn't matter how safe it would be. So if we look at it in the world of project management and driving change, if somebody trusts you and works with you and thinks, this person is delivering a good thing and I want to be part of this, it's more likely to be like, this is going to work. Okay, you might not see the benefits that you expected, but you might be surprised and see some benefits on the other end. I think I'll sort of just go to summarise now because, as I said, I've not got that much experience, so I'll try and put it off. I think what I wanted to summarise, and I want to bring Vyn into the conversation because Vyn is a prime example of where we're headed as a company. We're maturing and we want to use more ideas. The workplace for me is people. I see people all the time. I'm not yet at that stage where I see people as numbers and how much we can pull down and control. And so things like AI and Vyn and collaboration platforms are fantastic. but they're almost deemed useless unless we can bring the people who use it day in, day out along with us on that journey. So the only thing I would ask, if this has been somewhat of a use to you, somebody who's 25 sat here talking to a room of really the experience is fantastic and awe-inspiring. If you could look at your teams and say, how do my teams operate? What extra steps do they take to understand who their clients are, what their clients are feeling? If you have those really bad calls, why is that the case? But thank you for the opportunity, and that's me.